Hello, welcome. My name is JesseMcDesign. Today we're going to be building these custom aprons. Let's get started. Alright, so this week we're going to be switching it up a little bit. We're going to be going back to some sewing projects here. What we got going on is I've been thinking about this project for a little while. I've had a few references, and then once I got hit up about this, I looked up a few more, and I have a really good idea and a pretty good plan going on here. But what we're going to be doing is making a few aprons. I'm going to make my tattoo artist. You probably see me getting more and more tattooed if you've been watching the past couple years. I'm going to make him an apron. I'm going to make his other main artist an apron, and I'm going to make myself one, because what I currently use at my day job, which is like a metal fabricator at a hot rod shop, I don't use this all the time, but this is like a simple Hobart, you know, probably 30 bucks or something online, and you know, you slip it over. That's one of the main things we're gonna fix, is just this neck loop. I don't like that very much, so we're gonna do like nicer shoulder straps that cross around the back and then kind of loop and hook here, which will also get rid of these two straps here, which is on this apron, then buckle in the back, and we'll do the same, very similar. And then a third thing is, this is a basic apron, so the bottom is completely solid, right? But if you look up tattoo aprons, or I'm not really sure what else, probably like a woodworking apron maybe or something, but they have a split down the middle seam, and then you can kind of cinch each leg piece to your thigh. So when you're sitting, you can kind of access, you know, put stuff between your legs without the apron cinching up and getting weird. You can keep it separate while still being covered. So while using this apron as a template, we're gonna go ahead and fix all those little details. And this is just like again, a very cheap denim or canvas type of material. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I've made a few tote bags in the past. You can go check those out of this very nice waxed canvas. This is a light wax. It's not super stiff, but it is a little bit. And as you wear it, it wears in very nice. I have a bag that I've been using for a couple years now, and it's nice. It's nice and malleable now, but it's still very strong and sturdy. The thing will last me forever, I'm sure. But I also went ahead and got an assortment of hardware. And as you can see here, we got an assortment of little buckles for the back buckle I was talking about, a few different rings and such to cinch the leg straps, and you know, the main shoulder straps. These are nice little grommets that'll be nice, and then a few rivets and stuff just to hold some pockets and stuff like that together. But again, you know, it's just an apron, fairly simple thing. You know, it's one flat sheet of fabric. We are gonna hem all the edges really nice, so it's gonna look very professional. We'll have to cut up a few strips out of the leftover canvas to make a couple little loops to be able to sew on, you know, certain rings and such like that. But first things first, we're gonna put this apron back on, and we're gonna adjust some things, probably with tape or something, and just kind of get a better pattern than what we have here. Like I said, we're gonna adjust quite a bit and make it fit nicer, and then, you know, have it be long enough that when you sit down, it's not gonna ride up, and we're gonna put that split in there so everything works nice. So let's get onto that, and then we'll start getting some of this canvas cut out. what you just saw me do there was just adjust some things on here that I want. Like I said, we're gonna make it slightly longer, and actually not as much longer than I thought. I thought it would hike up a little bit more when I sat down, but I think it'll be okay, especially when we do that split will help a lot. But we're gonna end up adding about 1 inch to the bottom. With also, you saw me, I hiked it up because I want the chest to be covered more. I wanted that chest to be up a lot higher, which also makes the pocket move up a little bit. I was using my phone as just like a size reference. I want to be able to fit at least that and like a Sharpie or whatever, and they're about the same size. Phone's is a little bit longer, but that'll help me figure out the size I want for everything. This pocket is actually perfect, almost perfect for a phone, so I'll make the main portion a little bit smaller, plus 2 or 3 extra pockets for pens or markers, or you know, if you're painting you can put paintbrushes in there or whatever. Also, with moving that up means we're gonna adjust where the waist band sits. With where it was on this, it was super high, like in the middle of my back. I want it to be a little bit more around the waist, lower back area. And yeah, we marked our center and about where it should stop on this as well. So with all those measurements, we should be able to figure out what we need to lay out our design and start cutting this thing out. And also with the middle seam, to be able to get that extra bit of fabric to be able to do those folds, we're gonna actually add a little bit of width. We're gonna do a simple crossover type of seam down the center bit, and then that'll also help keep where the crotch seam up at the top, that'll help keep it together. We'll put, you know, like triple stitch that so it doesn't rip and tear apart at that little intersection there. And then doing that all the way up the middle, you know, it'll be partially covered by the big chest pocket and everything. It'll also be a nice little detail when it's done, but that'll give us the extra little bit of fabric down the leg seams to be able to fold over these smaller edges here to get those nice and finished really nice. So with all that being said, we're gonna probably move this to the floor so we have a little bit more space to work, and we'll get this cut out and we'll start doing some of the initial sewing. Okay, we got most of our pieces cut out and it worked out perfect, just like I was hoping. I looked at the canvas previously and laying this out on top of it, I was hoping I'd be able to use, I only got a yard of green, a yard of red that I'm not going to use, and then 2 yards of black, which is more than enough because I was able to use just half of the yard, so I can actually make a whole nother apron out of this roll here, and out of the little bits that I cut off here, I was able to make the pockets, or I was able to make the main chest pocket, which a little bit different than I was expecting. I was hoping to make it out of 1 piece, but I had to do 2 piece, but I think it's gonna be fine, especially having that seam down the middle I was talking about. I'll be able to line this all up and it'll look just like it was meant to be anyways. Then I also made these simple little flaps that will get sewn on top of just pretty basic pockets that will sew together and sew onto the back side, and then these flaps will just kind of keep those covered. That's just like an extra little detail I add. But now that we got this all figured out, I'm super happy with it. It's gonna be fine. It's slightly bigger than this. The length is perfect. I think it'll work. I did that seam down the middle, which left just the slightest little gap down here in the crotch area. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's about a 1/2 inch, which again, perfect, exactly what I was looking for. Everything's lining up, it's working out really well. So what I'm gonna do before I start to sew any of this, I'm actually gonna get my other pieces of canvas for my 2 other aprons I'm making, and just so we don't get too far ahead of ourselves, we're gonna use this as our template and trace out those 2 other pieces and get them to this exact point. And then we'll come back and start sewing up some bits and pieces. We got our pile of aprons all folded up. Nice thing about this wax canvas is like it's so stiff when it's new that you can basically fold it and it's just kind of stays like paper, which is really nice for sewing. You know, you don't have to pin it or anything to keep it in place. You can just kind of fold it and then just crease that seam real nice, and it's going to stay in place for sewing, which makes it that a lot easier. But before we get to sewing things together, I want to make a few straps out of the scraps here for these smaller D-rings, which will be for the legs. And it's basically, you know, we're just gonna fold up a little and it's gonna house that. And then, so we're gonna make a few more of these, and then we're gonna do the same thing except for these rings, which will go around the waist where the shoulder straps will come over, crisscross the back, and then they'll loop around here, and then they'll buckle in the lower back. So we have to make a few of those. And then also, while we're at it, I got a few little scraps of leather here for some of this, which will be, we're gonna be putting these little grommets into the corners of the shoulders, and we're just gonna add these little thin bits of leather. It's, I don't know the ounce, but it's fairly thin bits, and we're just gonna add those to the corners just to add some extra support there for when we hammer these grommets in. It'll just make everything a little bit stronger, and it'll add like a nice little accent piece. But all that being said, I have my 2 little extra bits here for templates to cut all this stuff out. I have this little piece for those. We're gonna get all those bits and bobs cut out, and then I think we're gonna start sewing some of this up. All right, so we got our main apron pieces all sewn up, all 3 of them. Everything's going according to plan. This machine doesn't really like going through super thick stuff, so I decided to do all our little loops and stuff just by hand. It's only gonna take a couple minutes per each. So we're gonna do that next. We're gonna do the little ones for the legs and then the bigger ones for the hips. But like I said, we're gonna hop on to hand sewing all these little bits and pieces on, and then we'll start figuring out our next move here. So I was about to start sewing on the chest pocket and everything, and then I remembered that I wanted to make a custom patch for this, and I wanted it on that main front pouch. So I made up a little stencil, and that's their logo. It's a B and an O with a little dagger. The shop's called Blood Oath. So, and then I made it just slightly smaller than this, so there's gonna be a slight little border. And we're gonna use the same really thin stuff that I made these little squares out of. We're gonna transfer the design by just slightly scribing it, just directly tracing over the paper onto the piece of leather, and then we'll get it slightly moist, and then we'll go in with our little carving knife and carve it out so it looks really good. But we're gonna play around with that, get these pieces cut out, carved, and then we'll get them stitched onto these panels. Then we'll come back, get these sewn onto the aprons themselves, and then since we'll have the die figured out, we'll go ahead and get our squares taken care of at the same time. I am gonna end up making those back pieces I was talking about, but we'll have to wait till we get the aprons a little bit more together, which requires these, so we're gonna have to do those first, but it's not that big of a deal. For right now, let's get on to these custom logos. We're coming up on the last couple things here. Everything is coming together real nice. Got those patches made and sewn on. I also got the little grommet protector pieces. Not really sure what those are called. So what we're gonna do is the side lower pockets, which should be fairly simple. I already cut out what we're gonna need, and it's, you know, a simple flap of fabric. We're just gonna sew the sides, flip it inside out, create a nice pocket. We're gonna sew all these together, cut and sew them onto the aprons themselves, sew on the little flaps. Alright, so check it out. I got mine pretty much finished up because I wanted to make sure everything was going to work out before I finished the customer ones. And everything's looking super solid. I'm a pretty skinny, lanky guy. I'm like 6'1", 175, just for reference. And it feels like these straps are a lot shorter than I was expecting, but they fit really nice, and I'll just, you know, add a little extra so there is adjustment. And then we got it in the back here. I kind of just put it on and then just clamped the sides together here like this, and then when I took it off, I just traced that all out to create that little back piece that holds it all together. Kind of depending if it's really high or if you want to slide it down a little bit lower like that, and it'll adjust kind of where the shoulder straps sit. So that's what we're going to be doing to finish these things off, is going to be making the last two. It's a little bit more work getting in and out of these things, but they're a lot nicer and a lot more comfortable. But what we're going to be doing is making the last two of these. I already made a stencil that I accidentally ripped, but we can work with that. And so we're gonna cut those out, dye them up. We're gonna stamp their names into them. I put JesseMc into mine because that's just usually a little name I go by sometimes. But in theirs, I'm gonna do first initial last name kind of thing. I think that'll work. Mine's last name's super long. I don't even think it would fit on this thing, but for them it's gonna work out really well. So let's get this last little leather piece made up for those two. The shoulder straps cut and put together, and get a final assembly going and get some final shots. Just made these custom artist aprons for traditional artists, tattoo, woodworker, whatever really. Check it out. All right, so there you have it. Super happy with how these came out. You can obviously see the green option here I made. The other one was black, same as the one I made for myself, so that's put away already. I don't want to get it too dirty or anything, but it's exactly what I was looking for. I'm pretty sure it's exactly what they were looking for as well. I had this kind of planned a few months ago. I've already had a bunch of references and everything, and then once my tattoo artist mentioned it a couple weekends ago when my last appointment, I was like, I'm totally down, and threw it next in line. I love all the little accessories and everything. I think it all came out really nice, and now that I've done it once, you know, the next, well, I actually done it 3 times, and I can also have my own as a template. It'll go a lot faster. Obviously making 1 instead of 3 is going to be a lot quicker, so I'm excited to throw it out there and see how many people might be interested. So, you know, love the little chest pockets, great. You know, these little pouches are big enough for like a Sharpie or something. You can throw that in there real nice. You got 2 of those, or you can put like paintbrushes if you're painting or whatever you got going on. In this pocket here, you probably can't even tell, got my cell phone in it. Perfect size for me, at least. This is I believe a 14 with a pretty slim case, and it fits in there perfect. You know, there's a little extra room to make sure it's covered. And then also these little hip pockets are the same exact size, I think slightly bigger, so you can reach your hand in there at the same time, and you know, you can have your phone or wallet or whatever, you know, whatever you want to throw in there. Maybe you're a tattoo artist and you're at a convention, you just want to throw some nonsense stuff on there or whatever. One thing I do want to point out is this hardware barely fits. It does come apart and everything, but you kind of have to do it in that specific way to get it on there. It's not normally that hard, just still trying to figure it out. And then of course, you know, the back, everything works great. There's enough extra bits tucked into the sides. I have an extra probably 8 to 10 inches extra on each side to have this adjust and fit whoever, you know. Again, like I was saying before, I'm pretty lanky type of person, so I have it cinched down decently. You know, you don't want it too tight because when you sit down it's gonna adjust and get weird. It is stiff, and you know, you just really have to wear it in. I have a tote bag that I made probably a year or so ago, and it's really nice and malleable. It's out of the same material, so I'm excited just to wear it in and just get to that point. And another nice feature about the wax canvas, you can't really tell on the black, really. It does a little bit in person. I don't know how well you can see it on here or in the close-ups or anything, but you know, on the colors, you really get that nice patina of the wrinkles and everything. So I'm excited to see this get worn in after a few months and see how it wears out and stuff. So with all that being said, if you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up, it really helps. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe. I'm always over here doing some sort of creative project, sewing up some sort of garment or wearable, some leather projects, traditional art, painting, home decor, furniture, who knows? Leave in the comments below what I should do next. See you on the next one.